Okay, I'm Noel Mason from AG&HC Mason at Forest Range. Been growing apples commercially for 23 years. So one of the things that helped me for a start was have a sharp knife and have the right angle on the bevel. So you'll find that the knife is about 22 degrees on the bevel out of the packet. That really helps the angle of your cut and a nice smooth cut. So when you make your cut, you want that cut to be nice and flat. 22 degrees is about 25% of 90, so if you stand your knife up on your stone, bring it down halfway is 45, halfway again is 22.5. If you just rest your fingers on the back, you'll maintain that angle. If you push away from you like that, you don't get the burr on the front of your knife as if you drag it. When you're grafting, the only thing that grows together is the cambium layer, which is under the bark. So ideally, you know, you'd try and select some wood similar size, but you know, commercially that's pretty hard to do. So the idea is that you only line up one side so that your cambium layers are together, and the other side it doesn't matter. Okay, so there's several different ways of grafting or changing your variety. There's when you buy your tree from the nursery or from Bunnings, it's either been whip and tongue grafted in the nursery or it's been chip budded. We can cover both of them, but perhaps the most common is the whip and tongue graft. It's pretty simple. You collect your wood in the winter time, as we've done here. You look after it really well. You don't want it drying out. Wrap it in plastic, in the fridge, keep it dormant. You know, you can do a whip and tongue from August through to October. No problem if you look after your wood. So the basic whip and tongue is you have a rootstock or your branch on your tree. You just make that nice long flat cut. That's the whip. And then about halfway back, you just make another little cut there. That's your tongue. So then you get your variety, the wood you've looked after, and you make the same nice flat cut there, and you make the same tongue. And then you just fit the two together and it should look something like that. You can just use electrical tape, anything to bind it together nice and tight and keep the water out. You can use the proper stuff, which is quite good because it doesn't lift the bark when you take the tape off in 12 months time. I always start at the bottom and work my way up. Like so. Then work my way back down again and try and tie it off. One of the tricks is you want to seal up your wound on the end. You can use a terminal bud, then you don't have to worry, but you want to seal this up. It'll stop the scion drying out. The piece of wood you put on is called a scion. You want to stop that drying out, so you can just use the old mastic, just a bit on there, or you can use the wound dressing. This is Green Seal product from Omnia you can use. So that's the whip and tongue graft. I guess one of the things with the whip and tongue, you want to be cutting away from you, but when you're doing the tongue, when you're cutting the tongue, you are cutting towards you, and there's battle scars. So when you're doing that cut, you want to keep your fingers together, so that if that bit of wood does split or slip, you know, you've got some control that you're not gonna split your thumb from end to end. I guess the other one I mentioned was the chip bud. That's generally done in the summer, early autumn, so January, early February is a good time. You've got your small apple tree rootstock in the ground. The reason that you do this type of thing is often new varieties that come along, grafting wood's really hard to come by, and the other reason, say something like Gala, where there's different strains or mutations, you want to go out and select the wood while the fruit's on the tree, so you can see the colour, what you're actually getting. So it's generally, you go and cut your wood, it's the wood that's grown or growing in that season. You wrap it up in a damp towel, and then you go out and you bud your rootstock. So it's very simple. You just make a cut into the side of your stock that's growing in the ground, something like that. One of the tricks I learned is you actually make that cut to cut your chip out just a little bit of angle. It helps hold your bud in there and gives it a little bit more connection in the bottom. So then you get your budwood. You know, something like this, it's got good buds on it, and you just cut out the same piece there, cut the bud out exactly like that. Very fiddly when you're all thumbs, and you just slip it in there.
You have a good eye for size there.
It's actually slightly too big, but again, you just look at one side.
Yep.
It's held in there by that little flap. Your cambium layer is just under the bark, so often your rootstock is very large, like this. Say that sort of size, and often your budwood is small. So you're probably playing with wood about this size. So if you take your bud and you just stick it in the middle, where was that big one? If you just stick it in the middle, just like that, it looks nice, but it will never grow. It will never grow. But if you bring it over to one side and just line up that bark or the cambium,
so that's
like that,
why that should be.
that'll grow.
Yeah.
So you use the proper budding tape, not any other kind of tape. For budding, you'll start off at the bottom again, make sure it's lined up on the side, tape it up. You don't want to go
Bud and everything, though, so just completely covering over the bud.
completely covering over the bud, and
When do you take the tape off then?
you'll tie it off above the bud.
Yep.
So this is done in January, February.
Yep.
So you've got February, March, April for that to callus and start to grow on.
Yep.
Probably leave it for most of the winter till July, August. You'll come there, you'll see your bud under there, you'll just cut there, you've cut your knot off.
Yep.
You pull off your tape, you've got your bud already stitched on there, calloused on, and the moment the sap starts to flow, he's away.
Yep.
For a nursery situation, it's really good. You probably gain, 3-4 weeks of growth over a graft. So that's the two methods of propagating a tree that you get from your nursery or whatever. All right, so now if we go into the field, we've got a variety, or in your case a rootstock, that's become a tree, and you want to change the variety. Popularity's gone, economics is gone, so you want to change it over. So there's probably a few different methods. You can cleft graft it, or bark graft it, or rind graft. I prefer bark grafting because it's really easy. I can get my Vietnamese, anyone to help me to do it.
I can do it.
Even I can do it. I prefer this method. You can still get another crop off your tree, or you can cut the tree off as long as you leave a couple of limbs as a sap drawer. And then this is a bark graft or a rind graft. So basically you get fairly small diameter wood. Obviously you've got a round trunk, and you're going to make the same whip as you do with a whipping tongue, like that. You do need sap flow, so this is probably an October job, because you want that bark to lift. It's got to slide underneath, not tear the bark. But anyway, we'll give it a go. So you need, I'll just redo this one. As I said, you need, smaller wood. You've got a round trunk. If you go too big a wood, when you make that flat cut, the bark or the cambium that you want to grow together is not actually going to be touching. It's like flat against round, if you like. So smaller wood works well. You want 2 or 3 buds, like so. You're just going to slit the bark there like that. And it's not going to work because it's too dry. It's stuck like glue. But basically you just want to slide it under the bark like that, and you'll get your tape, whichever you like, and you'll just wrap that up nice and tight. Cover over all your injury from your slit. Now you'll see down each side of the sign, there's a little hole. Now you don't want water, paint, anything getting down in there, so just a bit of mastic each side to seal up the hole. Now you've got a fairly big wound there. It's a stress on the tree. The risk of disease, bacterial or fungal, is quite high with grafting. So you're going to get wound dressing, household paint, whatever you like, and you're going to put enough of that around there to seal up that around the graft, and you're going to paint that cut in there, and you're also going to seal up the end of your sign. So now this winter we're going to come in here with our saw. We're going to cut that off there, just there carefully, leave that little bit there, and away you go. The cleft graft, again, if I was doing that, I'd like to leave some nurse limbs. However, some people cut down but you probably need to do this a bit earlier, like July or August, before you've got too much sap flow, because the sap will flood it. So basically you just cut your tree off. Get rid of the bit you don't want. All right, and then you're going to have a look. You don't want to be cutting down through a bud or a limb area. You want a bit of smooth on both sides, and you're actually going to split the trunk. Depending on the size, meat cleaver, whatever you fancy really. And then you're going to get your wood and you are going to put a V, basically a wedge. Probably helps if you make one side a little bit thicker than the other side, so that when you put it in there, the bit that's out in the cambium layer is really wedged in there. The beauty of this type of graft is your graft's not just sitting under the bark, can easily blow off or break off in the wind. It's actually wedged in there. So you've got your scion, you've made your cut in there, just a screwdriver or your snips. Just open that up a bit. You're going to insert it in there. You can even give it a bit of a tap. Trim the top to a bud, and that's your cleft graft.
And that cambium layer lines up with the outside bit.
Yep, same. If you have a close look, it's more or less flush.
Yep.
With the edge.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
If you put it in the middle, it will never grow, but on the edge it'll grow. So again, you want to tape that up, keep it nice and tight, closed up, airtight, watertight. The issue with this one is you'll find that your trunk will actually split down a fair way. You want to actually seal that up. You don't want your sap and your goodies running out the bottom. So get that nice and sealed up, and now it's a pretty big wound. You want to seal it up so it doesn't dry out, and you want to keep the water out of that split, that cut sealed up there, because you don't want any sort of paint running down in there, because if it gets between your cambium layers, it'll seal it off and it won't grow. So if you seal that up with your mastic or your paint, like so. So I think that probably covers most of the different methods.